This is Failing Justice.
Good evening, everybody. I am Justin Carlson. Welcome to the Failing Justice podcast. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. Hopefully everybody can hear us. Hope everybody's had a good week too. We are here in downtown Dallas, live in Hello Studios with my buddy Preston Green. What's up, man?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good. Preston's kind of become a regular so far, which I'm happy that he's been here and he's agreed to come and be a part of these conversations and things. So I'm glad that you're here.
Hey, man. I appreciate you having me.
I do have extremely sad news to report tonight. The Astros lost last night. That sucks.
Here we go with sports again.
Well, but here's the thing, though. I mean, I feel like that if I was, doing another show, that I would do sports, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, of course, I can't do sports. We got what's going on? Does it need to be turned up?
Oh,
Camera. Okay. All right. So anyway, we got some guys in here doing some checking for us, so making sure everything's right. So, but anyway, I feel like I would do sports, like if I was going to do another podcast, but obviously I couldn't do that with you because you don't know anything about sports. But yeah, the Astros lost. Been a heck of a series, though. I had to talk about it because that's my team, the Astros. But hey, props to the Rangers. The Rangers, that's one solid freaking team, and so congratulations to those guys for advancing on. As you may notice, something I want to point out, if you hadn't already noticed it, we have a new logo. You see it there on the screen. Might be hard to see because of these lights, but maybe you saw it on my Facebook page. So I'm pretty happy about that. I know you disagreed with the changing of the logo.
Well, I like the old one, but yeah, the new one's growing on me.
So yeah, man, I don't know. I've wanted to change it for a while. To make it a little more crisp, a little more professional looking, especially as we kind of go into the future a little bit with Failing Justice, because I still plan to move forward, keep going, never stopping, keep growing. The slogan that I come up with for Failing Justice, it's really hard to see on that logo, but if you can look at it, and zoom in, it says unmasking truth, healing justice, and transforming the system. We're here to talk about truth. We want to heal justice because it's broken, and we want to transform the system. That's the whole point of why I created Failing Justice. And I felt like that was the perfect slogan to have, moving forward. And I know I also want to do eventually, this is going to be something that I do as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I'm working towards that now. It's just time, but as I always say, I want this to grow, but not for selfish reasons. I want it to grow because we want to unmask truth, heal justice, and transform the system. And so that is the mission of Failing Justice moving forward. And so I wanted to hope everybody likes the new logo. I really like it. Took some time to get it made, and I'm happy about it, man. I'm happy about it.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So let's go ahead and kind of just move forward with the show. I know, I want to put a disclaimer out there. I always like to put the disclaimer out because a lot of times our views don't necessarily represent the views of any employer we may have. and I know everybody doesn't agree with some of the things that are said on here, but I just want to put that out there because the case we're about to talk about, it's kind of controversial, but we're going to talk about it. There's some video attached to it. It's kind of graphic, but we want to spark some meaningful conversation with this. I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit about it off camera. So Leonard Cure was shot and killed by Camden County Sheriff's Office in Georgia last week. What's interesting about Leonard Cure, though, is he was sentenced. He did 16 years in prison for a crime that he didn't commit that he was eventually exonerated for. So he got exonerated in December of 2020, and then this last encounter was when he was shot and killed on a traffic stop. Now, what I want to do first, though, I kind of want to dive back to the original case and talk about. And I'm just gonna read directly from the Innocence Project website, so I don't miss anything or misquote something. So it says the crime, Dania Beach, Florida, on November 10th, 2003. A man with a revolver forced his way into a Walgreens store in the early morning hours. After threatening one employee with a revolver, the suspect left the store with $1,700 in cash. I'm going to butcher this name, but Ashraf Rizik, and Kathy Van Huysen, the only two employees present during the robbery, told police their recollection of the events. Rizik saw the perpetrator in the parking lot when he arrived at work and asked if he needed anything. The perpetrator told Rizik he was waiting to make sure his child got on the bus. When Rizik opened the doors to let his colleague in the store, the perpetrator then proceeded to fight with Rizik and eventually pulled out the revolver, causing Rizik to back off. Once inside, the perpetrator was able to get money from the store safe, and according to Rizik, he opened the doors for Van Huysen at 7:15, and the perpetrator fled the scene at approximately 7:24. 2 days after the incident, both victims, who are they were the only eyewitnesses, met with the detectives to complete a composite sketch based on the recollection of the person. Unfortunately, the observations of the two witnesses did not match. Kathy described a black male, 5'8", stocky and missing teeth on the left side of his mouth. Rizik himself had no recollection of the perpetrator missing any teeth. A week later, detectives had constructed a lineup and asked both individuals to identify the suspect independently. Out of the 6 men presented to her in a lineup, Van Huysen chose number 3, which was Leonard Cure. Rizik, on the other hand, was between Cure and another suspect, but concluded number 3, which was Cure, was not the same complexion as the perpetrator. Although Rizik later testified he did not choose, although Rizik later identified he did not choose out of the lineup, Detective Jeff Mealy's testified that Rizik had circled and signed the photo of Cure. Not mentioned in this stage in the investigation is that more than one of the 6 photos in the lineup was of Leonard Cure. That's fairly interesting, right? So they had more than one photo of this guy in the lineup. Additionally, the suspects from the lineup were gathered in a highly unethical way through combing a law enforcement database of people who had previous interactions with law enforcement. The day after the identifications were made by the witnesses, which was November 20th, 2003, police arrested Leonard Cure for robbery with a firearm and assault with a firearm. Police also collected black shorts and a black jacket as evidence when making the arrest. Now, on the trial in May of 2004, Judge Paul Backman of the 17th Judicial Court approved the motion to suppress the closing evidence authorities obtained because it was not collected with a search warrant. However, the judge ruled the identifications by Rizik and Van Huysen were reliable despite the lineup being unnecessarily suggestive. In his investigation, Detective Mealy opted to speak to a young boy who was observed by Detective Connie Bell in front of a nearby elementary school south of the Walgreens. Bell saw the boy walk into school that day with a guy who was wearing blue jean shorts, a blue jean jacket, and a red baseball cap. This was the same clothing as the perpetrator described by Rizek, but did not match the clothing collected by law enforcement during the arrest of Leonard. Detective Mealy additionally showed the young boy the lineup and claimed he had selected Mr. Cure. The boy was not called as a witness. Mealy's later made clear he had no report of the boy's identification to support that allegation. Leonard Cure went to trial in August of 2004 without any physical evidence or forensic evidence attaching him to the crime. The victim testimonies with conflicting identifications were the only evidence used against him. Although Detective Bell testified she did not make any mention of the guy she saw earlier that day by the school until days after the robbery. To identify a person from the vague description, she and her lieutenant searched through a track repeat arrest program, which is TRAP, a computer program containing information of people nearby who had been arrested or were on prisoner release. This is really long, so I'm going to kind of cut this out, but I'm going to kind of scroll all the way down to the post convention. It says Leonard Cure appealed his case in 2006, and a 4th District Court of Appeals upheld his conviction. In 2015, and the year after he filed for post-conviction relief, and both petitions were denied. Fast forward 4 years later to December of 2019, Cure wrote to the newly created Conviction Review Unit, which we have our opinions about that. We can talk about that later. I think a Conviction Review Unit is pretty awesome. So he wrote to the Conviction Review Unit of the 17th Judicial Circuit to request that they investigate his case. After an initial review, the director of the Criminal Conviction Unit reached out to the Innocence Project of Florida. The following February, Krista Dolan became counsel for Mr. Cure. And on April 14th, 2020, the Conviction Unit agreed to modify Cure's sentence to 16 years to allow him to be released based on time served while they reinvestigated the case. So the investigation continued, and you keep going on and on and on. And eventually he gets, in 2020, December 11th of 2020, all charges were dropped and he was exonerated. So there was so much of that I skipped. The link to that, guys, will be posted in the show notes after the show, if you want to check that out. But that's just kind of a backstory to what he went through. He did 16 years for a crime he didn't commit, which sucks. I mean, we've talked about that quite a bit on the show. We had Richard Miles in here. I have a guest coming next week, which I'll release that information tomorrow, who was also exonerated. But that's a big deal. We obviously want to work against that. But let's kind of fast forward now to what just happened last week. So the Camden County Sheriff's deputy stopped Leonard on I-95 for speeding. We're gonna play the video in a minute, but it was a good stop for speeding. There was a tussle, and then he ended up getting shot. Now, what we want to do is play the video. Now, keep in mind, it's a couple of things. One, it's long, and the next thing is it is graphic. A man dies right there on the video, so I just want to warn everybody of that before watching it. But I want to play this video, and then we are going to kind of break it down and talk about it. So here it is.
Change that out to a T Tango. Step out! Step out! Get out! Get out! Put your hands back here.
I ain't doing shit.
Put your damn hands back here.
Who are you?
Staff Sergeant Aldridge, Sheriff's Office.
My name is Al Wade.
I don't care. Step to the rear of this vehicle.
In the name of who?
In the name of the law of the state of Georgia. Step back here now or you're getting tased.
I'm going. Watch me now.
Put your hands on the back of that truck.
Do you see that?
Put your hands on the back of that truck.
The back of the truck.
Both hands. Turn around. 34 Camden, send me another unit. One non-compliant.
Your name is Officer who?
Staff Sergeant Aldridge with the Camden County Sheriff's Office.
Who county?
Camden County. Put your hand behind your back.
Do I have a warrant? Wait. No. Excuse me.
Either put your hands behind your back or you're getting tased. I'm telling you that right now.
Why am I getting tased?
Because you are under arrest for speeding and reckless driving.
I'm not driving. Nobody was hurt. How was I speeding?
You passed me doing 100 miles an hour.
Okay, so that's a speeding ticket, right?
Sir, tickets in the state of Georgia are criminal offenses.
I don't have a ticket in Georgia.
You do now.
Why?
You passed me doing 100 miles an hour.
Offense and what? Am I going
Hands
to jail?
behind your back. Yes, you are going to jail. Hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
Yeah, bitch. Yeah, bitch.
Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Camden, shots fired. Shots fired, Camden. Stay down. Do not get up. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Camden, shots fired. Suspect down. Can you send me help? Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Camden, are you clear?
Camden, clear. Hot shot. And we have the ambulance on the way. 34 East and 4.
Stay down. Do not get up.
You all right? You got backup coming?
Yeah. Cover him.
All right, so that's not the full video. The video obviously goes on. There's some other things that happen after the fact, but I mean that's kind of enough for us to get where where we're trying to go. So what do you think?
I mean, this is one of those incidents that I think that anybody could watch it and come to the conclusion pretty quickly that there's things that could have been done differently by both parties involved, right? I'm glad you went in before we played the video. I'm glad you went into the history of the people involved and also talked about his case, because I tell you one thing that's a problem right now in the current times, society that we live in, is, I know on my Twitter feed after this happened, you just get all these different articles and posts, and essentially what it is it's everybody using this incident as clickbait, right?
Right.
To drive network traffic and attention without, understanding that this incident occurred. Somebody lost their life, and there's things to be talked about, but all really people want to do is instantly divide, create that divide, place blame on the officer or the suspect. And, there's a lot of things that, we can break down and talk about it here.
Yeah. I think obviously it's a tragic ordeal all the way around. And here's my deal. People always use the term, and we've used it on this podcast before, Monday morning quarterbacking. And I just think, honestly, why do football teams watch tape the next day after they've won or lost? The reason they do that is to look and see, okay, what could we have done better? We didn't see this coming. We could have, and so I view what we do here with this, not to, pass judgment, but like you said, obviously there were some things on both sides that could have been done better from the get-go. And so I'll just kind of start from the top.
So I would add that, I think there's times in law enforcement when issues come up that people do sit around and Monday morning quarterback when it's not really necessary, right? But I will emphasize that, in my opinion, in my belief, it's important when we sit and look at incidents that occur that result in the loss of a human life. Whether, our beliefs, who's in the right or who's in the wrong aside, we should always take a look, because there's always something that can be learned. And instead of immediately, that's all you see is it's just people want to immediately create that divide.
Right. And so here's the deal. You have cops who will come and say, without diving deep into the situation, say the cop was automatically in the right. And then you have people on the other side, whether it be family or just anybody in general. Of course, families, you have biased parties. You have cops that are biased. You have families that are biased, but you immediately have people who just automatically choose a side for whatever reason. And while I think there were things on both sides of this that were wrong,
do you think it was preventable? I guess that would be my first question.
100%.
Right out the gate, do you think that this entire incident was preventable?
Yeah, I completely agree that this was preventable, but not to say that. Well, let me just say this. Was the traffic stop justified? Yes. The dude, you can see, the sheriff's deputy, his name's Deputy Buck Aldridge, Sergeant Aldridge. Sergeant Aldridge was on the interstate, I-95. This truck blows by him. He says 100 miles an hour. I don't know how he comes up with that, but whatever. The dude clearly blew by him. Justified enough for a traffic stop. Makes the stop. So the stop was completely justified. I've heard people say, it was a pursuit. I've read many different things saying, hey, he was in pursuit. That's why he got out of the car pissed off. In my opinion, I don't view that as a pursuit. I think the guy, it was less than 30 seconds. He put his blinker on. I think he went to get over, but then there was an 18-wheeler. So then he kept going, and then he got over. So I don't think anywhere in the middle of this was this a pursuit by any means.
Yeah, I would agree. Like you said, it was roughly 30 seconds from the time he engaged in the traffic stop till they got stopped, and then once they got stopped, it was an additional 11 seconds or so before he exited the vehicle.
He actually
give or take, and he double checked the plate on the vehicle. So, if, in my opinion, or from what I've seen, if it was a pursuit, I think once we got stopped there, different things probably would have taken place.
Yeah, felony stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't you're right. He sits in the car for a minute. To me, in identifying problem number one would be the officer's attitude as soon as he got out the car. Now, you and I have both been in situations, and cops, if we have cops listening to this at some point right now or later, a lot of cops, when you're in a situation like that, maybe he perceived that Deputy Aldridge perceived that he wasn't stopping fast enough, quick enough. Maybe he just thought the speed was outrageous. Whatever the case may be, he gets out the car, elevated to like a 10 just right off the bat. And what's weird about that is he was so calm on the radio before getting out, right?
And I would say his body language approaching the vehicle. To me, his body language approaching the vehicle it doesn't match the tone of the voice, right? Or the direction that he was given. He immediately wanted him to exit the vehicle.
Yeah.
But then again, this is a different state, so I'm not familiar with the normal procedures and protocols of how they conduct traffic stops.
Yeah.
I have seen some states where they immediately get people out of the vehicle and even take them back to their squad car and put them in the passenger seat while they issue a citation. So, but I would agree it appeared very aggressive in the beginning.
Yeah, and what I thought was weird is that he, just in looking at this, even if the dude was doing 100 miles an hour, I would have, to me, I'm thinking, okay, you're on the side of I-95, there's traffic flying by you at 80 miles an hour, take a passenger side approach. I feel like, and I've done this 100 times, walk over to that passenger side, knock on the window, say, hey, Officer Carlson, whatever, police department, why are you driving so fast? You're doing 100 miles an hour. Any reason for that speed? Somebody in the hospital, why the hell are you doing 100 miles an hour? That didn't happen. He's right there next to the interstate, and he's yelling at the guy immediately, get out the vehicle. And you got to think too, that's why I gave the history first, because this guy did 16 years in prison because of, police officers. So I'm sure he has a biased opinion about police officers. And then you have Deputy Aldridge, who is immediately to a 10. And these two people meeting on the side of the road is a total recipe for disaster. Immediately. So, gets the guy out of the truck. The guy's walking back to the back. Deputy pulls his taser out because, the guy said, he's like, I'm not doing shit. So I think the deputy at that point pulls his taser out, and I'm sure Leonard saw the taser and the laser because he was pointing at it. I think he was trying to say, "Look at this" or something. I don't know, but he saw the situation. Tells him to put his hands on the back of the truck, which he does, and then they're arguing. He's got his hands on the truck. He's kind of leaning over like, hey, the deputy's like, you're under arrest. And that's another question that I have. I don't know how, like you said, different state. Just in my opinion, somebody's doing 100 miles an hour, they don't go to jail. At least, I've pulled people over for that before. And I've never taken them to jail, so I don't know where that came into play.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. I don't know if maybe that's where he decided to go once he started getting some resistance. Then again, it leads me back to the question of why he pulled him out of the vehicle in the first place.
Yeah.
And he stepped out of the vehicle and he stepped, out of the vehicle directly facing him.
Well, they're damn near in the middle of the road.
Yeah. And
I think the deputy was in the road for a moment.
Yeah. And so, that moment right there, just instantly on top of the aggressive tone of the deputy's voice, he gets out of the vehicle and faces him, and kind of squares off right there. That moment instantly increases the tensions, makes them more real.
Yeah.
And, when I was watching the video too, I don't want to ever assume anything. I will be curious to follow this and see what comes up afterwards. Hopefully they'll release some information on the autopsy and things like that. But from watching Mr. Cure's body language, something just seems a little different. And I'm not necessarily throwing the assumption out there of being under the influence of narcotics or anything like that. Something, to me, some of the body language, maybe there's some type of mental health history just because of the way he was reacting to some things. It's like, the deputy was telling him to, face against the truck, and he starts pointing in the air, and like you see that. I don't know if he was pointing at the laser, but then you have to look at the angle of where the taser was pointed. I think the taser was pointed on him, so I don't think the laser would go directly on the ground. So he kind of sometimes seems like he's talking not directly to the deputy, but to something else.
Yeah.
And then, so if there is a history of any type of mental health things going on, or some type of crisis, that could also tie in and explain the speed too, of driving that fast.
Yeah.
So just not being fully aware of your surroundings. But
and you being a mental health guy, because that's kind of up your alley. I never dove into that.
Yeah.
Everybody has their niche in law enforcement, and you're better at some things than others. Mine was child sex crimes. Yours was mental health. Which is why I felt like you talked well to people. Same with Gillen. When Gillen was on the podcast, that dude is pretty, he's obviously he's pretty passionate about that, which is what we talked about that night. So
yeah, there's a difference. He's very educated in that in that area.
But he's educated. But my thing, I think with you, I think you have common sense and heart. So you notice those things. You pointed those out to me earlier, and after going back and kind of watching, I think you may be right about that, because when the guy pointed in the air, he, because he had his hands on the truck and he's sitting there saying, hey, like, why are you taking him to jail? I don't want to go to jail. And he even stated like that's a speeding ticket in my mind. Like I agree with the guy. To me, why this deputy decided to arrest this guy, I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm not doing the investigation. I haven't seen any reports. But just looking at, for face value, like I don't understand why he's making that arrest. But clearly the guy was like, isn't that a traffic ticket? And then he like keeps telling him to put his hands behind his back. Well, then he does that thing in the air.
Yeah.
And that's when he gets tased. Mm-hmm. He hits him with the taser as soon as he does this.
Yeah.
And obviously the taser, I think it might have tensed him up, but I don't think that it was fully effective, obviously.
Yeah, I'd be curious to, as this goes on, let's plan on following it to see what kind of information's released in the next few weeks. But, I'm really curious to see what kind of information comes back from the investigation once they release it. If the taser actually, if it was a good hit from the taser, because it didn't seem to affect him.
I felt like he tensed up for just a moment, like maybe, like he kind of.
So maybe a partial.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know like if it was a good direct hit, he probably that would have brought him down. But then again, you always see that sometimes it doesn't affect people.
Yeah.
And he was leaning up against the truck. So again, I'm not saying there's any type of mental health crisis going on, or there's, I'm not saying that's what was going on there. Just from my observation and the body language, just, something was off there.
Yeah.
And like you said, the history, that he probably already felt a certain type of way towards law enforcement. That definitely was probably a factor there that went into play, right? But it escalated really, really quick.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like
very
0 to 100.
Yeah,
really, really quick. And so let's talk about once it got physical and hands on, it was on.
Well, so when he hit him with the taser, maybe it partially worked, maybe it didn't. I don't know. You heard the taser cycle, and then when the taser stopped, the dude turns around and he's kind of swatting at the wires. You can see him swatting at the wires. And at that point, I mean, Jesus, they're in the road. Thank God, no, they could have ended both of it, for both of them right there. But yeah, and you're right. I mean, it was hands on at that point. I mean, I think Mr. Cure was. It looked like he's trying to get his hands like around the deputy's neck. The deputy went for his baton. You can see him reach for his baton, and he's striking him, which is ineffective. He's too close, and he's in a tussle, so that there's nothing that he's going to be able to do about that. And then you can actually see him. I mean, he's got his hands around his neck. And that's when he's saying, yeah, bitch, I got you, whatever. And, at least in that moment, I would say, like, for that deputy, even if we sit here and say, yeah, he got it there, right? At that moment, like, no matter what happened leading up to that point, that does not excuse Leonard for doing what he was doing. Now, there could be so much in play there, though. Like, obviously, I think his feelings toward law enforcement was definitely in play. But then who knows? Was he on something? Was there anything mental health going on, like you said? So there's a lot of factors as to why he just decided to fight so viciously. But my point is, no matter what had happened leading up to that point, even if somebody sit here and say, yeah, it was the deputy's fault, doesn't excuse what he was doing, because hands around throat, choking somebody out, to me at that point, I would say that's a deadly force situation. And
Absolutely. I mean, especially, I would say, especially here, in our state, most policies and procedures that we would have here that would definitely arise to that.
Yeah, I mean, because he's choking him out, and I'm sure the fear. Because if Leonard was on something, who knows? But if he was on something, he could have had, strength of an ox. Like, and it was obvious that deputy wasn't small. Leonard doesn't appear to be small either. But he was in a fight at that point, and the fear that probably was flashing before his eyes, like, hey, I'm getting choked out. The taser didn't work. The baton didn't work. Is this dude going to choke me out on the side of the road? Which probably is what led to the decision of him pulling his pistol out and shooting him.
Yeah, because, there's just so much that, when
there's a lot to unpack in this.
When there's an incident like this that happens, there's, because of recent history that we've dealt with in this country, and the increasing divide amongst law enforcement and the community, the trust, and on top of that, the enormous political divide in this country, and how, there's always somebody who will see a monetary or political gain in somebody else's crisis. Yeah. And they will feed on that and push that agenda and continue to create the divide, right? So because of all the history that we've, just gone through and are overcoming, I feel like as a country, we still have people pushing that. And this incident was tragic. I think that anytime somebody loses their life in an encounter with law enforcement, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think it's tragic, because human life is precious. Whatever led to that happening doesn't excuse the fact that every human life, is precious. So we need to respect that, especially if you're a person of faith. So these incidents occur, and I'll just be honest, I see this stuff on Twitter or I guess X.
Yeah,
X. So weird. Facebook, you see articles, and it's just driving a certain agenda that, when you look at this incident, it was tragic. It was horrible. That who knows? Like, I asked you the question, was it preventable? We could say that if the deputy would have approached differently, it could have been preventable, but still, let's take all the other contributing factors that we talked that could have come into play: mental health crisis, or being under the influence of some type of narcotics or something like that, because of what we saw. Even if the deputy did everything that we think would have been the right thing to do, we still don't know what the reaction and outcome would have been.
No, and I mean that's an unknown, and you're right. I don't disagree with that statement, because we don't know. Dude could have went up there and said, gave the dude a briefcase full of money and said, "Hey, and it still could have gone south. We don't know." And as a matter of fact, we don't even have all of the facts as it stands right now anyway, because we're not part of, I'm sure the GBI is probably doing that investigation, Georgia Bureau of Investigations. But, like what you see, again, starting from the get-go, the second that guy got out of Deputy Aldridge got out of the vehicle, I think that was problem number one for me. Because going back to you don't know if his approach would have been different, but I mean, I feel like you can say that that didn't help matters whatsoever, and so there's some additional information, that we do know that I kind of want to add to this about Deputy Buck Aldridge's disciplinary background, and so I want to play a clip about that real quick, and then we can talk about that because I mean I feel like you got to take this somewhat into consideration.
Out! Get out!
This is Camden County Sheriff's Office Sergeant Deputy Buck Aldridge. He was the deputy involved in Monday's deadly traffic stop. His career with the Kingsland Police Department began in 2012 as a peace officer. An employee performance review in June of 2013 said he needed improvement on his judgment and decision making. The comment underneath says, "Be calm, cool, collected." The next year, Aldridge gets a warning for unnecessary force during a traffic stop. In his 5 years at Kingsland PD, he's completed 618 hours of training, including de-escalation techniques, use of deadly force, traffic stops, and more. In August 2017, he's fired for violating use of force policy during a traffic stop. In an internal investigation, another officer involved in that stop said he thought it was a bit much. Another said in part, "I see a police officer being way too aggressive to start with. He had no business picking her up and throwing her on the ground."
Turn around.
The family and attorney of Leonard Cure say they feel Aldridge was also aggressive Monday.
I do believe the officer got out extremely aggressive.
But the thing that you don't understand completely, the tasing at the beginning, why couldn't there have been more attempts to de-escalate?
We showed the video to criminologist Alex Del Carmen.
What did you think of this deputy's approach?
The sergeant is thinking probably that the individual suspect is not compliant with his verbal commands, and as a result of that, he has to use force. I'm not sure that that's entirely true.
He puts his hand straight up, and then he's tased.
From what you can see on the video, it doesn't seem to me that this would be the type of call or the nature of the event that would require for an officer to tase the suspect.
What do you think of this video and this deputy's history of use of force?
If the officer has, in fact, a history that he has been using force in the past and that he's been disciplined in the past to the extent of being fired, then the police department has a very serious problem in their hands right now.
So, just to, recap on some of that, you have, he started his career in 2012, Kingsland Police Department. June of 2013, documents show that he had made bad judgment calls up to that point. And I want to say, I'd put in there like as a disclaimer because he was only a year into his career at that point. So, I mean, no telling what any of my records say. Oh, you're into my career. I have no idea. But like, he's fairly certain, maybe even less than a year at that point. So, then you have, the comment on that said he needs to be cool, calm, and collected, I guess. And then in 2014, he was written up for unnecessary use of force on a traffic stop. And then the third separate incident in 2017, he was fired for a violation of the use of force policy. And so, to me, kind of with some of these things, like seeing how he got out of the vehicle on the traffic stop with Leonard Cure matches some of these things that he was fired from an agency. And you saw some of the comments from that investigation, it being a bit much, apparently threw somebody on the ground. And we don't know the validity of those things. We can't, we all know how some, cops can lie, right? So we don't know, but it is damning to me, some of these things that you see here, when you compare it to his behavior and his attitude as soon as he gets out of the car on the traffic stop. I mean, thoughts on that? Say what you need to say.
Yeah. Yeah. We're probably going to get into it.
That's fine. Let's go.
You ready for
I'm ready. Hey, it's totally fine.
Yeah. Remember what I said earlier. I said, I believe any time that there's an interaction with law enforcement in the community and there's a loss of life, it's tragic. Because all life matters. I firmly believe that a majority of officers are on the job for the right reasons. They want to do the right thing. I don't think that the majority of us are out here walking around with just pure hatred in our heart and looking to instigate or pick a fight, right? Or even
and I mean I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that Deputy Aldridge woke up that day and was like, I want to I want to kill somebody today. Like I don't think that went through his mind. So I would agree with what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, I don't think any officer out here.
Right.
Let me rephrase this. There should be no officer that's walking around thinking, I want to take a life.
Yeah.
I want to get in a shooting. I want to get in a fight. Like, if those are your intentions, then you need to find a new line of work.
But would you agree that there are some officers, whether it be a small pool? I mean, I've known officers who
are very aggressive.
And that's what they want to do.
They like to fight. They like to instigate, and that's what we need to focus on, and work really hard to pick the right people in the beginning, right? Kind of where I was going, though. Everything you brought up afterwards, the deputies' previous employment history, disciplinary record, violations of policy, excessive use of force or violating a use of force policy, everything that news agency just reported on, it could be contributing factors to what happened, but I'm not in the position to sit here and say that all those things were contributing factors and are reasons why he made the decisions that he did that day and why Mr. Cure is now deceased because of his previous disciplinary record or what somebody else perceived to be policy violations, right? That's a whole nother situation. We can go on about that. What I'm getting at is that they put those in there for a reason. This is the divide that we're creating amongst ourselves. We see an incident and we instantly go, let's point the blame. And then you have people that unfortunately will take the family members of this man who are, grieving, and they will see an opportunity to monetize and to further push their political agenda or their own beliefs, and a certain narrative. And that's not the best intentions for the family. If there is something really that went wrong, if there was, wrongdoing on the officer's part, I think that that we have to get back and I say get back to it. I don't know if it's ever happened because I haven't been on the job that long, but I feel like that we have to start creating a relationship with and build that trust to where when these incidents occur, we allow time for an investigation to take place. And then we comment and we formulate opinions based on facts, not assumptions. Because just sitting here looking at this video and trying to say, well, this could have happened, that could have happened.
But that's the whole point of the show.
Huh?
If nobody's having these conversations, as cops and looking at, like we said in the beginning, if we're not having these conversations and saying like, what can we do better? What can we identify that we can see that's not okay?
No, that's not what I'm getting at. That's fine. I was sitting here and saying like, hey, this dude sounds like he's got an attitude problem and he was being an asshole the moment he got out of the squad car.
Yeah.
Like talk to people with some respect. Maybe you'll get a different outcome. Maybe somebody won't, come out the car and not comply. What I'm saying is you have all these other interested parties, like the video you just played, that wants to start bringing in all this other stuff that may or may not play a factor into it. And then you read news articles. The news article will say, man exonerated, did 16 years for, a crime he didn't commit, was shot by a cop.
Yeah.
That's all facts. But does the fact that he was exonerated, did 16 years and shouldn't have, don't get me wrong, shouldn't have. If he didn't commit the crime, then he shouldn't have. And that's a tragedy in itself. But does that do anybody any good for that to be the headline?
Well, yeah. So the headline, I mean, I would.
It's automatically putting.
I would say the headline reads like, okay, like this guy was done unjustly for 16 years, and then the police ended up killing him anyway. Like I see, I do agree. Call that clickbait, right? Because the internet's a messy place. We both know that. So, but I have to say, when you have 3 to 4 disciplinary actions in your background and they are all related to use of force and, not using your best judgment and, escalating situations, and then you end up getting fired from an agency, I would have to say that has to, and then what we saw in the video, I would have to say that 100% would play a factor into not that would, to me, would play a factor into why things got where they got in that video. Because clearly this guy, to me, based off of what I'm seeing in the documents that I've read, because I have them online, I don't have them here, but based off the things that I read is that, I mean, the guy has a problem with attitude and ego, and I feel that, and to when you, and it's a juicy news story, right? So the news is automatically going to go get the disciplinary record, right? Like that's just what they do. That's what they've always done. We know people who've gone through that, and right or wrong, that's what they do, right? Everybody wants a story. So you could automatically expect that. Now, who's to say that those things, I feel like that they contributed to his approach. Like, I feel like he has an established history, right? Like, I mean, if you've been arrested for narcotics 6 times and convicted 6 times and you get pulled over and you got narcotics on you again, like, you have a history and you have a problem. And so I feel like in that deputy situation, I mean, he clearly has a problem, and it's a documented problem. It's not just one, not even two. It's like 4 and a termination. So I feel like that was a contributing factor to his approach on that truck for Mr. Cure.
His approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it a contributing factor to the shooting?
I'm talking about the use of force. You know, so when we look at the shooting and they were talking about the taser, whether he should or should not have been tased. Basically, would he have been in compliance with the use of force policy? I don't know. I haven't read that department's use of force policy, right? But I'm not talking. I think what people care about was this man murdered, or was this an incident that occurred in self-defense? That's what people should care about, right? The intent. Was it the deputy's intention to, as soon as he got out of that car, get in this conflict and murder this man?
Yeah, I don't think when he made the stop and he got out, like, clearly his in his mind he wasn't like, I want to pull my gun and shoot this person. I mean, he probably don't even know what the person looks like. Probably doesn't even know the person's background. I mean, that's just kind of how traffic stops work. You have no idea who you're pulling over, or most of the time you can't even see in the vehicle to see, you know, what color they are, what they're wearing. You know, a lot of times you don't know these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think.
I would even go to say it wasn't his intention to fight this man, because why would he pull his taser out? I know cops that like to fight, and they ain't gonna pull no taser out if they want to fight. And then after, so then once the use of force was initiated, they went hands on. He continued. He went from his taser to using his hands and everything to his baton, and his last option was to use deadly force, and that's what he did. He followed those steps from what I see.
Yeah, and see, I agree with that, but also in my opinion, if you back up, I don't think the taser was necessary. I don't think the yelling was necessary. The yelling got you to the taser, and like I said, it's a recipe for disaster when those kind of people meet. Like, the cop's mad, he's meeting somebody who probably doesn't like law enforcement, and then automatically you mix those things up together in a blender, and I mean, you have a poisonous concoction that's ready to explode. And I mean, that's what happened, but as far as how I feel about cops and their egos and their attitudes and their approach with things. You know exactly how I feel about that. And I didn't like that in this situation. That's what I keep harping on, because I feel like that's truly what led to, I think was the shooting justified? Yes. I agree that the man was choking the deputy out, and he's probably in fear for his life, scared to death at that point. And so I think the shooting was justified. I don't think this police officer be prosecuted. I'll be really surprised if he is. I mean, it is Georgia. They indicted Trump. So, I mean, who knows, right? I don't think he should be prosecuted. But I completely just have a major problem with his approach. And the problem is the mindset with these cops. They have the patch, they have the badge on, and they get out, and I'm the law. What I say goes. We've talked about this, and I feel like that's how Deputy Aldridge got out of his vehicle, was just automatically to a 10, elevated right here. And I don't think the taser was necessary. That's just my opinion. I'm just one person of many, and that's the good thing about this country, as it's still free at the moment, so I can have that opinion. But I don't think it was necessary in that moment. I
don't like tasers.
Yeah, I've never used a taser in my my whole career. I've had it for a long time. I have AFib. So like I was afraid I had a doctor's note. Doctor was like, hey, you can't get tased because, you could die. And then I got a wild hair one day, when I went to another agency and I decided to get tased. I went, I went 5 years in my career without carrying a taser. And then on my 5th year, 8 years, because we didn't carry him in the jail. So I went 8 years without a taser. And then I decided to do it. I got tased and I could carry it. I pulled it a few times, threatened, but I've never tased anybody. So I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, I don't think I have either.
And so I think I think it's just a tool. It's a tool that's probably necessary in some situations.
I think that this is a really good example, though, of how it could escalate a situation, not de-escalate a situation.
There you go, and that's you explain that better than I did. I feel like pulling that taser out. He's if Mr. Cure was on something.
Or in some type of crisis, there's no talking him down.
Right. You don't know what his thoughts are and what's being pointed at him.
Yeah.
Whenever, you hit that taser, it makes the blast doors come open. It makes a noise. It's cycling. Something hit him. I'm sure if something was going on in his mind, he was in crisis. He doesn't know what that was. And so, it's fight or flight, right? Like he just started fighting. That's my point. I think the taser escalated.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm getting at with that.
And it very well could have. And, again, I think these are important conversations to have, especially amongst peers, you and I, that are still on the force, right? And like we see these things, we dissect them, we talk about them, we talk about what people could have done, what they shouldn't have done. How about this? How about that? Right? Like constantly thinking and kind of putting yourself in those shoes. What would you do? How would you handle this situation? How would you talk to this person? That's important. But my thing is humanitarian approach until you can't. That's always the best option. But,
yeah.
But we don't see that. It's not common anymore. It's not common just to, well, I take that back. I see it all the time, right? Because I'm on the job and I see my fellow officers interacting with people. I see it all the time. I see it more times than people would think that it exists. I think a problem that we have right now is that others don't see it. They just see the bad because other people see monetary gain in constantly showing that.
Well, let's be honest. I don't like Ben Crump. That's that attorney that the family had. I don't like him. That's
where I was going to go. You get these people that I feel bad for. I feel for the family because they lost a family member, and that's horrible. Whether their family member did something right or did something wrong, or was at the end of this was killed in self-defense, they still lost somebody that they loved, they cared about, and you can't dismiss their grief over it or their anger if they're angry about it, right? But the problem that you have is whoever that attorney is, but apparently he's known for coming in and representing people. Somebody will come in and see a monetary value on those victims of those family members that are grieving, and then just goes out and just stirs it up.
And that's why I don't like Ben Crump. I mean, I follow him on Twitter actually, and you're right. He is in a lot of these cases, these officer involved shootings, or when somebody dies at the hand of law enforcement, because I don't think his intentions are pure when he approaches these people. I think you're right, because he knows that they're going to sue. He knows that the city's going to pay out millions and millions of dollars, and he's going to get a cut of that.
That's what it's about.
That's it. And so that's why you're right. I don't like that guy. I think I follow him all the time, and I've commented on a lot of his stuff because that's what he's about. Unfortunately, though, I mean, those people exist, and that's why he probably has millions of dollars in his bank account, because that's what he does.
And I don't want to dismiss any good work that he's done or represented any family members that, somebody was wrongfully killed. I don't want to dismiss anything that any good work that he's done.
No, I agree with that.
What I would say is that I think society as a whole is, and I would say as a nation, like we're just lost souls. We look to grasp on the first thing that is presented to us that will offer us some type of comfort. And a lot of times right now, that's not necessarily the right thing that comes up first because of others' ill intentions. So unfortunately, you have a tragic incident that occurs like this one, and the media, the people who have everything to gain and don't necessarily think about the ones that has everything to lose. They see an opportunity and they start working on it before they even get the facts out, or they start spinning a certain narrative. This was a recipe for disaster, like you said. With this man's history, wrongfully convicted, has already spent 16 years of his life taken away from him when it shouldn't have. And then, he has this encounter with law enforcement and loses his life.
I can only, I don't want to say like I can somewhat, to a small degree, probably understand how that guy felt. You see red and blues, like even as cops, you see red and blues, like your heart starts pounding. Like if you're getting pulled over, I've been pulled over a lot by cops, and it's just that encounter in general, whether you've had history or no history, it's just like something about it, something. I mean, it's a very, I mean, it's a situation that makes you, you're being stopped. You have authority pulling you over. You don't know what for. You don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what they're going to do. And like I said, even as cops, it's just a situation that, to me, even as a cop, it's an encounter I don't like.
I don't like it either. I get nervous all the time.
Yeah.
And there's this road. I live off of a busy highway, and there's tons of neighborhoods currently going up in construction, right? So a lot of the roads that are up now are just two lanes to get into the neighborhoods. And there's one that, I take often to get into my neighborhood to go home, and the speed limit is 30. Okay. And this road is winding. And it's got some sharp, turns, but not a turn, just you go to the road and then it's a hard 90, turn right, turn left, just because you can tell they're building it through construction. Speed limit's 30. They've got the speed trailers up and everything. Every time I get on that road and I see headlights behind me, I get nervous because I'm like, they're about to pull me over.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's normal. We all, we probably all get that feeling. And
yeah. So you take, somebody like that, man, who had that history, and then just the encounter in general, when you say red and blues and they're making you stop, even without the history. So you add all of those things together, and then the cop gets out and he's at a 10. I mean, that's a bad situation. You know, it really is. And, you know, that I agree with you. I hate that the family has lost a family member and they are grieving. I'm not a fan of that attorney. And, but like I said earlier, I mean, you know that when these things happen, people are going to start digging. You have the news media that dug up all this history, and I think the history is important. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't think that this deputy should be prosecuted. Do I think he should be a cop? No. So I'm gonna be frank with you. I think he should retire his license and go do something else.
Yeah. So, you know, that's another good point to make. And I'm not a use of force expert, right? So, but from what I saw, you know, it seemed that at the point where the deputy used deadly force was being used on him. So it was in defense of his own life.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if a prosecution came as well. But anything can happen right now in our current, what is it, criminal legal process?
Yeah.
Not a justice system. And I do think that disciplinary history matters.
Well,
when it applies to what's going on.
I think this is very much applicable to the situation. You know, I've dealt with officer-involved shootings where reprimands that I gave to officers when I was their sergeant, they were involved in a justified shooting, and the media goes out and they pull, you know, a lot of my reprimands made the news, you know, where I gave those reprimands, but those reprimands had absolutely nothing to do with the shooting. But they just want to say what's, you know, and I think it's important. I think we should look, right? I think it's important to look like within the investigation. Now, I think we're backwards when the news media looks and they just want to do it for, you know, for clicks and a story. I think that's crap. But if it's applicable, and I think in this case it is, I think it's, you know, like I said, it's not just one situation. It's not two. It's literally 3, 4. The guy was, you know, and it's all use of force stuff. You know, and looking at the video, I agree that he was not level-headed. I don't think the taser should have been pulled. I think it was a, you know, contributing factor to things escalating. So, yeah, as long as it's applicable to the situation, I think it's important.
Yeah.
You know, far too often, especially in this society, people say, okay, well, you know, this cop has been in trouble. He's been written up. And now look, he shot somebody. Well, you know, was he written up for not putting a freaking car maintenance sheet? You know, I got written up one time because I forgot to put a car maintenance sheet that the car needed an oil change on the dashboard. They thought it was insubordinate because I didn't do it when literally I just forgot to do it. And I know that's in my file over at Palestine PD. But, you know, like those things, if I get in a shooting, wow, come on, man. Why does that matter?
No, but right now you can probably guarantee that if you were to get in a shooting, you know, they wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be spun as you were written up once for an incident involving car maintenance. It would be, you know, you've had previous disciplinary history that would speak to your character and responsibility of your duties as a police officer.
Yeah. And that's what the headline would say. It would say, you know, cop who shot so-and-so has a disciplinary record. That would be the clickbait to get the clicks and get the views, and everybody be like, "Oh my god, like this is absolutely absurd." But these are hard conversations. Like what we're doing right now, like you know, you can put 10 people in this room, and all 10 people will have a different opinion, and it's hard. It's hard to have these conversations because of the many different opinions that are out there. And some people's opinions matter than others. Like, right? What if they send that to a grand jury and the grand jury's like, okay, like we should, because he was an asshole, we should indict him, and that's wrong. He will have to live with this. He will watch this video and look back and say, I really screwed up, because I feel like in the beginning he did. And if he's any kind of person at all rewatching this, he would be like, yeah, like
I could have done something different.
So he will have to live with that, which is why I don't think he should be a cop with all this history and this, but I don't think he should be indicted, but that goes back to everybody has a different opinion, and who knows what the opinion of a grand jury would be, or a district attorney, that's the problem that we face, is that you and I have our own opinions. We agree on some, we disagree on others, but they take that before a grand jury and they have the opinion and they indict him, and then he has to face all that. I mean,
and it's all the information that everybody gets influenced by.
Yeah.
And everybody's got an agenda. That's what just really pisses me off about the current state of affairs in our country and the political system, the criminal justice system. Everybody is, I'll tell you what. One, people who are in positions to be in service to others are not serving others, they're serving themselves. That's their agenda. Seems to be the priority. And that goes for people that sit on both sides of the aisle, all walks of life, different, wealth class. It's just everybody. We're in a very selfish time.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be like that, then you shouldn't be in a position to where your function is to be of service.
But that's the problem. Like, so many people that are in service of themselves get in those positions where they're supposed to be in service of others. You listen to my podcast, especially in the very beginning, you hear about a lot of that. And I mean, even up to now, we hadn't touched on it lately, but you and I know that exists. It exists. We're talking about judges. We're talking about police officers, deputies, jailers, district attorneys, federal judges, state judges, municipal judges, like all these people, they have the power and again, I don't want to group everybody, because that's not the case, but so many of them are, they are in service of themselves and their donors, and their friends, and how do you change that, right? Like that's the golden question.
I think the entire system's broken, my friend. Just completely and utterly broken. And that plays a big part of it. And the unfortunate part, or the unfortunate result of that, is that everybody else who relies on people in those positions, they don't get fairly treated. They get the bad end of the deal.
But you see videos like this, because I'm sure this video is all over TikTok.
Oh, it's all over it.
It's everywhere. And people see these things and their conclusion is, look at the police, look what they've done again. And going back to, I agree, there were things done wrong, but like,
and I will say, we have put ourselves in positions for people to say, look what they've done again.
Yeah.
We put ourselves in positions where we've messed up. We haven't necessarily taken responsibility for it or done anything to overcome it or learn from our mistakes. And then we go out and do it again. So, that's a little self-inflicted.
One of the biggest cases that come to my mind, Amber Geiger, right? Like, right here in Dallas, she was a police officer, shot somebody in the wrong apartment. She thought it was her apartment. And, at that trial, you look and you see, I want to say it was Botham Jean's brother who got on the stand. Maybe it was the brother, and was like, hey, like, I forgive you. I forgive this woman for what she's done. Like, I still lost my brother, and I may be wrong. Maybe it wasn't the brother. I can't remember, but it was a family member. Like, I lost my family member. And like, that family member asked the judge, it's like, can I go down there and give her a hug? And the judge allows the hug to happen in the courtroom. And she apologized, man. She that you could tell, like, just the total grief that she had for taking that man's life. And it was an accident, And they prosecuted her, dude, and put her in prison where she's at right now. I disagree with that. I don't think she should have went to prison.
Oh,
and our system is broken, because what do you do? Like, they lost their family member. There's nothing you can do to bring that back. Do you putting this good woman in prison? Does that help anybody? And so that's how I look at this traffic stop. I'm like, okay, it will be interesting to see what happens, because, hell, I think this guy was more in the wrong than Amber Geiger was, if we want to compare the two, right? So it's like,
if you wanted to put him on trial for being an asshole, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's just, but these conversations, going back to what I said, these conversations are so hard, because we get in here and we talk about it with the intent of doing better and healing justice, transforming the system. And it can be viewed, it could be viewed as Monday morning quarterbacking, sitting there calling out all the, but that's not my intent with it. Like, my intent is to have these conversations. That's why, I wish Failing Justice has a more broader audience, and I'm sure eventually it will. It's a slow moving process, but that's what I want to happen with Failing Justice. Unmasking the truth, literally healing justice and changing the system, because you can't leave it up to the news media. You can't leave it up to the prosecutors alone. Like, you can't. Who
politicians.
You can't leave it up to the politicians. Washington, D.C. is in a freaking total mess right now. Like,
state or local government.
I fully believe it's going to be boots on the ground. And I would say even more so, maybe even leadership within law enforcement. Everything, if you see on TV where they have the like the map and the yarn with the pins, and like they're trying to map things out and see where this leads. All the yarn and all the push pins lead back to leadership with these problems. I would like to know who this officer's FTOs were, who his sergeants were.
Who's been watching video camera for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, because if he's got a problem with talking to people, I promise you that this isn't, the first time it's happened. And this isn't just a one-off event. I say it all the time. We don't talk to people well. We don't write well. We don't shoot well. We don't drive well.
Yeah.
So that's clearly might be an obstacle here. But somebody should be noticing it. And if somebody's not, it falls back on leadership. If there's no action taken, it falls back on leadership.
And that goes back to the generational thing. Like, if this guy has had sergeants or corporals who agree with that behavior and don't see anything wrong with it, right? Look at the thing that was recent at home, the whole Coffee City thing. That chief was in Houston just yelling and cussing and acting a fool, and then the mayor's like, "Oh yeah, I don't see a problem with it.
No big deal.
Yeah, it's so fine, totally fine. What you gonna do?" You can't. I fear that. And not that we do have to take responsibility for our own actions at some point. I had a conversation with my 9-year-old before he was having some issues this week. And on the way to the studio tonight, 45 minutes conversation, one of the things that I told him was, you have to take responsibility for your own actions. He got an attitude and was losing. He lost his mind yesterday over something. And I told him, I was like, what happened was nobody else's fault but your own, and you have to take responsibility for your actions. And so at some point, we as police officers, we have to take responsibility for our own actions. Going back to the conversation that Richard Miles talked about, being vulnerable. We talked about it last week, the week before, being vulnerable and admitting when we have screwed up. And saying, okay, what can we do better? And that's why I bring these things up on the show, these videos, because not to sit there and just dog the guy. I mean, did he screw up? Absolutely. I feel like he 100% screwed up. And, and unless I'm shown something otherwise, I feel like what he did was just the first domino effect to the last domino falling over, but not to knock the guy, but it's like, these are training. I hate to say this, man. It sounds so insensitive and terrible, but that's a training opportunity for other people. I mean, it has to be at this point. You have to talk about it. And if you don't, just keep moving forward and nothing changes, right? And I feel like that's kind of maybe what happened with him and some of his leadership.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if shooting's justified, use of force is justified, and we walk away from it and we say, hey, should have just, been a little nicer, right? Or watch your tone. That could have escalated something. And we can walk away and we can agree on that. I think we're accomplishing our goal, because the goal is to admit when we make a mistake, even if the mistake wasn't the one that led to this man losing his life. At least we can say what we did do wrong, and that we'll try to fix it.
Yeah, I agree. There's some things that, so we're an hour and 40 in. I mean, I don't think that we're going to get to our other topics, but the link to this full video. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to say we talked about, the media will show a portion of the video or clip-its, and to be fully transparent, we didn't show the entire video. Right. You said it's about 13 minutes long. And I would encourage everybody to go and watch the entire thing from start to finish, because in the end of the video, you will see the reaction that takes place after this officer involved shooting, and you'll see the deputies, or you'll hear the deputies' reaction, and that holds some value to me as well, because that things like that speak to people's intentions sometimes. So I think it's important to watch the whole thing. And I'm sitting here. There's a comment on the live feed here that said, even if the deputy had a bad attitude, the suspect should simply complied, and it could have been easy peasy. Parents should go back to teaching their children to obey. I would agree and disagree with parts of that statement there. Should the suspect have complied? Yes, but he didn't. I will also say that, we do need to do better at talking to people, and maybe we will get some compliance in return when we're in that capacity. But I don't think any of that is ever an excuse. We should never devalue the human life that was lost.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. We shouldn't lose sight of that. Like the goal is to not have officer involved shootings.
Well, it's like I told you earlier. I disagree with this narrative that just because you're a cop, you're automatically right and you have to comply immediately. Now, that's what attorneys tell you. Attorneys will tell you, especially in these situations, like even if the cop's in the wrong, you just need to do what they say, because if you don't, it could get worse for you. I agree and disagree with that, because man, it's like, what kind of country do we live in that somebody can just, a human being who just wears a badge, who has 720 hours of training, can just totally stop you, violate your rights, or worse, because I have a problem with that. I really do.
That's the law. So we're in a nation built on law.
Look where that's gotten us.
But the reason why let's be honest, the reason why you have a problem with that is because we have violated that trust on so many different occasions.
Yes.
So, we can say that we have a problem with it, and we can say that there are people out there that will use that in a negative way, and they should not have that authority, right? And I would agree 100% with that statement, but I would also hold value in, us having people with that authority, because there are times when it's needed and it protects innocent lives or it fights crime, right? Like, and here's the other thing. We spend so much time worried about this stuff that doesn't matter in law enforcement whatsoever,
That's the problem.
That the actual criminals, the actual evil human beings out there harming people, they're just getting away with it while we're all over here fighting with each other on the inside, fighting with the system on the outside. The people that should be receiving the full weight of the criminal justice system is just getting by, and and maybe that's the goal. Maybe that's what they want, right? Maybe that's what, I guess the people that are calling the shots, sitting in the big chairs, maybe they just want civil unrest. I don't know. Sometimes I think so, but
if we would just go back to what our founding fathers penned on paper, the U.S. Constitution, because people can argue, things have changed, the world's changed, and but at the end of the day, that document, those Bill of Rights, those things, all we have to do is just revert back to that in all things.
Yeah.
And it truly is that simple.
I think so.
And that's where we've gotten off track, is we are no longer following that in this country in any way. And I agree with you. Clearly I'm for law enforcement. It's just, man, you're right. Like the problem that I have is that so much has been violated that it's like, can you blame some of these people for their responses when they encounter law enforcement? I don't think you can.
No, there's bad apples out there.
Yeah.
And there's incidents where we've made a fool of ourselves, and we have violated that public trust, and we haven't done anything to necessarily earn it back. And I think that's, like you said, we should go back to the simple things, the simple way of doing things. I would, it's how I would put it. It's not rocket science to do this job and do it well. And I think that leaders of organizations that are in the positions to make a positive impact and to make a change should focus on that. Let's start doing the job for the right reasons. Let's stop complicating it. Let's focus on the right things. Let's focus on preventing crime, right? Providing a service. We are a customer service oriented organization. So let's focus on service and protect. Yeah. Next couple of shows, let's put up the law enforcement code of ethics.
Yeah.
Go over that, and if we go back to that paper, and go back to doing the simple things, we stop focusing on what accreditation you have, what association you're a member of, what all these big organizations are telling us we should do because they're being influenced by other big organizations and big money, and stop worrying about buying all the big fancy stuff and hey, like, you need this taser, it's $15,000 or whatever because it'll prevent you from having to use force and go hands on, when sometimes actually that's a lie. It's going to escalate the situation. Let's stop taking advice from people who do not have the community's best interest at heart. Stop listening to people who are absolutely disrupting the system.
It's a dog and pony show.
It is.
I mean, we take so much time responding to incidents, major incidents, like the George Floyd's, like things like that. Like we have taken those things, and we don't want to appear to be those guys. We want to stay, like, we want to come out and denounce that, which we should, obviously. But so that's what we're focused on. It's just appearance, what we look like versus what we really are. And that's what I feel like. I'm going to have to shut up because we got to get off of here. And this is going to lead into a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it's late.
But listen, I think this was valuable conversation. This was a tragic incident. I think people need to listen to this, watch the video, and we're going to pay attention to this to kind of see what comes from it. But I think it was a valuable conversation, hard conversation, but valuable.
And I would add just real quick that I also think it's important that I hope that the leaders of this deputy's organization are considering what he just went through, the tragic incident, and being there for him, whether people think he was in the right or in the wrong, whether he was an asshole or not, he's still going to have to live with this.
Yeah.
And whether it impacts him today or it impacts them in a few months, it will, and it will hit hard. So I hope that he has a good support system in place. I hope his department follows through in offering that support system and taking care of him, and the same thing for the family members, because they're going to be going grieving. So we can only hope that they won't be getting bothered and being pushed in several different directions. Just let them grieve and find some peace with what happened, and go from there. But those are two important takeaways that I would end with.
No, I agree. Put the money bags down and let them grieve,
because there will be a time for that if it's justified. There will be a time for that.
No, I agree. Man, thanks for coming on the show. We always have good conversation. I hate we didn't get to our other topics, but that seems to be the theme when we get on here. We kind of take some time and really dissect things. But I enjoy it, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
I'm going to put something out tomorrow, but I'm really excited about, I'll go ahead and just kind of briefly mention it. Next week, we're going to have Tyrone Day in the studio. Tyrone Day is a personal friend of Richard Miles. He lives here in the Dallas area, and Tyrone Day did 26 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and was recently exonerated this year, actually. And so Tyrone's going to be in the studio next week. I'm looking forward to having him and being able to hear his story, have conversation with him, and how we can do better through listening to his story. So tune in next week, guys. That'll be actually next Wednesday, November 1st, not Tuesday, because Tuesday is Halloween. So we're going to push that up to Wednesday. But thank you, everybody, for joining the show tonight. As always, I'm thankful for each and every one of you that watch the live, that download the podcasts on your podcast platforms. Keep in mind, guys, we're on all platforms: YouTube, X, Instagram, all the platforms. Like us, tell your friends about us, share us, because it is important that we spread this message. Thank you guys so much for joining in, and we will see you guys next week.
This is Failing Justice.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I want to let our listeners know that there's a way that you can help support our organization. If you go to our website at www.thisisfailingjustice.com, scroll all the way to the bottom of the homepage, and there you're going to find a donation link. Any amount you can donate will help us further our mission and reach more people. We believe it's really important to keep spreading the word about the issues that are plaguing our criminal justice system and how we can make it better. It is crucial to keep fighting for the change, and with your support, we can do just that.